but you would only need 3 signatures.
Yes.
Well,
And
4 is
you-
always good. but
Okay.
We only need 3.
Then I think that where I don't have a lot of information, I'll pass it to you, and if you don't sign it, then I'll look at it.
I'll read it and sign it.
It being 7:05, I call the Board of Health meeting to order. All members present except Teresa Mays, who is on vacation this week. We welcome our new member, Susan Emery.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board. Before I begin the business of the business, we talked about this.
I can't see.
Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Coombs
Oh,
Road
okay,
Race.
okay, yes.
I know it's
Okay.
not on the agenda, so I'm just putting it on the agenda for the next time.
Okay.
I would like to get all of our requirements in place, so we have a handout that we can give anyone who wants to do a fundraiser that's gonna require service of food, that we can explain what's required of them, that they have to deliver within 30 days of the process, to make sure everyone understands that we're gonna insist upon having all the information and documentation in advance within 30 days of the performance in order to allow for food service. So she has called me and asked to talk to me about it, and I said, I'll get back to her as soon as we have a policy in place. So we'll have a policy in place and over the next 2 months so that we can give that out. So that everyone knows that going forward, when you want to have anything to do in the town and you're going to present food, we're going to have a handout to give you that will outline everything you're required to do in order to get food safe certification, all the other requirements to have food served at your voluntary or your fundraiser, without having to have multiple people involved or multiple questions being asked. So that's a document I do want to get done, especially. That being said, we have an agenda tonight. On the agenda tonight is the reorganization of the Board of Health, and because of that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon White to lead us in the reorganization of the Board of Health.
All right, at this time, I'll open up for nominations for chairperson of the Board of Health. Do I have any nominations?
I would like to keep it the way it is.
Fine.
Oh, I
Nominate
think
Bob
I need to say a name.
I nominate Bob Manning.
I nominate Terry Mays.
All right, I have 2 nominations. I guess I will ask for a vote for all those in favor of Bob Manning. Do I have an aye or an
Aye.
nay? Okay,
Do I get a vote?
yes,
Okay, aye.
aye. All right.
So you want it.
All those in
No.
all those in favor of Terry Mays, may I hear an aye?
Aye.
And I gotta say aye, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that gives it a 2 to 2,
So it's 2 to 2?
Yeah,
wouldn't that be?
Yes.
yeah. So
I don't know what to do.
I'll relinquish my vote. I'll change my vote to no for
Okay.
Bob Manning.
Okay, so
it's
Terry Mays is
the new chief
as a
of
new chairperson.
chairperson.
The next nomination I have is for, if anyone would like to nominate someone for vice chair of the Board of Health.
I
Do
nominate Donna Hoffman.
All right, do I need to do a second? I forgot to ask that.
Why not?
All right, all right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, do I have any other nominations? Okay. All right, do I have a vote for Don Hoffman? How many?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
You can-
congratulations. Okay,
I'll abstain.
3.
Well, I have good news and I have bad news.
All right.
Go ahead, what else we gotta do?
I turn the meeting over to Donna because
Knew you were gonna do
Terry
that.
is not here and you are the new vice chairperson. All right.
This should be interesting.
I'll be happy to help you in any way I can.
Good, I'm moving down next to you then.
Here, do you want to take your seat?
Yeah.
In this moment of quiet, I just want to thank the board members for my past serving for the last 5.5 years.
Oh my gosh, has it really been that long?
It has been, and I appreciate all your support. And I am here to support the board until I retire next year. And after 2 terms, I don't think I'll be running for a 3rd term, unless I'm really itched to do it. And I will be fully involved in the board until that time comes.
Thank you, Bob, for your service.
Thank you for your service, yes.
I really enjoyed it, and
You've done it through a lot of tough things, too.
it's been interesting, I won't lie. It has been interesting. I've learned a lot from this lady right here.
Thank
And
you.
I'm so glad I can say I was part of the board that we hired her.
Thank you.
So she is an extraordinary individual as well as an extraordinary health agent. And I'm proud and pleased to say that she's a member of the Abington Board of Health. So
Thank you.
that being said, you can take this any way you want it.
As the incoming vice chairperson, God help us here, I actually would like to express my appreciation to you as well for the time that I have been with you for the last year. I've certainly learned an awful lot.
Not that you wanted to.
Who knew what health would encompass? And thank you very much to Sharon.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, I am going to ask that Bob guide me at least through this process for
Yeah.
the first meeting.
Not a
while Terry
problem.
is gone.
I'm gonna jump around tonight because I'm gonna go to the health agent's report next.
Oh,
Just because
okay.
I'm gonna put her on the button right away
Okay.
because she's frisky and ready to go.
All right.
She is, huh? Well, she found her glasses.
Yeah. You'll learn that about me.
Yeah, it's just reading it.
I did finish April's list of food inspections. I also have been doing the 2014 tobacco inspections that do have food. I mean, when they have a food establishment, they have a tobacco permit. I've been doing the inspections at the same time. There have been 3 temporary food permits that were issued in April. Abington's Lions Club Breakfast, which was a really nice event for the day of the voting. The Abington Boosters had an event last Saturday, and then the Abington Police 5K is coming up this coming weekend. We also had a new body art studio open up, which is called Tiger Shark Tattoo. It is where Black Diamond used to be. I think it's 200 North Ave, if I remember. There's been quite a few housing inspections and re-inspections during the month of April and into the beginning of May. Just a couple of the things I just wanted to mention. If you have any questions regarding the housing, you're welcome to ask. We also did I thank you, Linda, very much. Linda and I worked nonstop for 2 hours straight, registering dogs and cats. And we had 79 cats and dogs that were vaccinated.
Thank you, Linda, for your devotion.
It was absolutely nonstop.
Yeah, I love them.
I just also wanted to mention that this is our yard waste collection week from May 5th to the 9th. And you can put out as many bags or 35-gallon barrels as needed. We do not accept plastic bags though. And the compost site is running wonderfully. We have some great volunteers, so we should be all set for the entire season, which I'm really, really glad to say. All right. But if you have any
Awesome.
questions regarding any of the inspections, you're more than welcome to ask me.
I have no questions, just want to, once again, thank you and Linda for taking the time to do the rabies clinic.
Okay.
I'm very pleased that our yard waste collection continues. I
Yes.
know it is in the high school sign.
Yes.
Hopefully people will notice it this week. But if you do not remember to put your yard waste out, please remember that we do have the Groveland Street site open every Saturday from 9 to 1.
9 to 2.
9 to 2, and you can bring your stuff up any means possible and add it to the refuge that's already up there. So
Correct.
if you miss the opportunity this week, don't feel as if you missed the opportunity. You can maybe join up with several of your neighbors and have everyone bring everyone at once and bring it all up. Please do not dump it in front of the gate, please. If the gate is closed, please do not bring your refuse. Please bring it up only on Saturday, because if you don't, one of us have to bring it in, or we have to hire the town to bring it in, because it gets overwhelming, especially when it gets wet. So
Yes.
I once again urge the citizens not to bring your refuse up during the week, that you wait until Saturday and bring your refuse in when the gates open, to make it easier for all the volunteers, who are truly volunteers now, helping us out at the Groveland Street site.
Yes. But it's worked out very, very well.
Very lucky. Thank you
Yeah.
very much to everyone who's volunteering.
We did advertise yard waste on cable TV. It's on the Health Department website. And it's, like you said, at the sign at the bottom of the street.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very grateful. Anybody have any questions on the health agent's report? Not this time around.
Okay.
You get off easy tonight. I don't understand that. All right.
Do you want to remind people again of the electronic waste? This one here?
Go right ahead.
Just to remind everybody that there's still a free electronic waste collection events available on the South Shore. We just completed the one on May 3rd at South Shore Vocational Technical High School. The next one would be May 17th at the Rockland Transfer Station on Beach Street, followed by one at the Situate Transfer Station on June 7th. That's at the 280 Driftway. The information is also available on the town website and the Abington Cable Television. And to remind people that they can bring televisions, computer monitors, computers, laptops, printers, computer keyboards and parts, DVD players, VCRs, stereo equipment, radios, cell phones, telephones, fax machines, toasters, irons, and any small item with an electrical cord. Large appliances such as refrigerators, stoves, washing machines, and dryers will not be accepted.
I think that might be a mistake.
Oh.
It is for the VOTEC one, because if you go on the
Yeah.
SSRV website,
Yeah.
it said that they would
Right.
take washers, dryers.
Yeah, I was
Claire-
at the one this past
Yeah.
Saturday, and there
Yeah.
were washers and
Yeah, Claire
dryers there.
Sullivan sent out a new one after that one.
Ah,
And the one on
I didn't
the
get that one.
health
I
department
didn't
or the
get it
town website is the correct one.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they'll take.
Thank you.
So we will take
Smaller
refrigerators and small
appliances.
stoves and
Yep.
appliances.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so to
But
clarify.
it's
that's
a-
even
we'll
better.
take
Thank you,
those.
Donna, for that. That's really good
And it's
information.
And
it's
it's-
a
it's
great
on-
I
opportunity.
missed it.
Saturdays from
Oh, yeah.
9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Those are Saturday dates that were
That's
quoted,
2 weeks
so-
from this Saturday, the 17th of May, at the Rockland Transfer Station on Beach Street, from 9 a.m. to
One.
1 p.m.
And Abington residents are welcome because we're part of the South Shore Recycling Cooperative.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is a reminder of next week's special meeting with the selectmen on the landfill closure. Next Monday night at 6:30, I believe, the selectmen and the Board of Health will have a joint meeting to initiate or continue our discussion on the closure of the official closure of the landfill at Groveland Street. I don't have much more information other than that, but the board will be asked to attend that meeting. We'll open both boards. We'll hold a meeting with the Board of Health and the selectmen, and then we'll close the Board of Health meeting and go home. So unless there's another issue to be raised, and if there's another issue to be raised, please make sure you let Mary know by Wednesday.
Wednesday before noon, please.
Right. Okay? I passed around the vouchers to be signed.
Did you want them back?
Yeah.
If they're done, yes. Before I go anywhere else with this,
Are those usually just left on the table for the meeting to be
Oh.
signed? We don't have to go pick them up?
but
Just
these,
so I know,
they're
yeah.
delivered to me
Okay.
up at the head of the table, along with the minutes.
Okay.
So, the other thing we have tonight are the minutes from April 7th.
No, Terry's not at this meeting, so should we,
No, because Linda, Donna, and you and I were all here.
so as long as.
So as long as 3 members are available, majority doesn't make a difference. So, does anyone have anything to add or change on the April 7th minutes? We talked about the e-cig, we talked about the verbal warning for e-cig, we did dumpster regulations. The annual fee for dumpster would be $25. Sharon made some changes. Bob approved a motion for the approval of the minutes, Linda second, and so on and so forth. I have no changes or anything to do.
No, I think
If not, I request to approve the minutes of April 7th.
I'll second
You want anything further to say?
Anything further to say?
Anything further to say? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. My last minutes. Or maybe not, we'll see.
Maybe not. We're not letting you go there easy.
Not gonna go either. And finally, we have dumpster regulations. Sue, I know you're new to the board, and so it's probably gonna be more information than anything else, but it's probably a good time because we're gonna do some changes tonight to the regulations that we hadn't assumed, because we did talk to the fire chief.
Yes,
Oh,
and
that's
And
what this is all
I wanna
about.
bring out that
I'm gonna bring
conversation about
back-
the fire chief and all the fire chief information that came in your envelope that was delivered home to you. I'm gonna let you talk in a minute. I'm just gonna bring up a couple other things about the dumpster regulations. I personally have done an extensive move around the town, and I have some questions that I wanna bring to the board's attention about non-commercial dumpsters, about locations that have 4 or more home units and they're using a small dumpster on wheels, and whether or not we want to, I really want us to think about, before we put this into a regulation, after reading the chief's request to endorse some of his things into our dumpster regulations, and whether or not we want to commingle those or keep them separate. I want Sharon to have input on that, because I trust her emphatically on what he had to say and what they have discussed. But I want to bring up several things. The first point I want to bring up is, in driving around town, I noticed that probably a minimum majority of the food establishments already have in place dumpsters on either cement or tar pads encompassing fence. So I'm not really seeing a lot of overwhelming issues about enclosures and being off the ground. As much as it's important to be off the ground, something that's impervious to water, so the dumpster itself is not sitting on the ground, causing it to rust, causing holes to occur. So I'm not too afraid of the dumpster regulation as it stands right now, as we have written it, containing the requirement to get it off the ground and get it onto a pad, something that's water impermeable or water dispersal, and then talking about enclosing that for our commercial residents, for our commercial retail establishments of food. And the then question becomes the board, do we want to include people like a stationery store having to have it enclosed? Do we want to include small mom and pop stores that have a 6-yard dumpster on wheels that, for the most part, as long as it's on a pad, doesn't really need to be enclosed? Is that not, in some cases, the ability to close it and have a gate may cause the collector to have a problem collecting the physical dumpster. So those started popping up in my mind as I went through different locations. I also wanted to raise the issue about residential units that have 4 or more units, to whether or not, if they have huge dumpsters, if they have smaller dumpsters, do we want to go with limitations on gallon or cubic feet size, or whether or not we need to do that at all for residential dumpsters? Is it good enough that they're on wheels and they're going to be picked up by a refuse vehicle on the property, and more likely than not, they're going to have to be in some way, shape, or form accessible for a truck to pick them up? Do we really want to go down that road with them in our regulation? So I don't know about that question either, so I'm raising that question also. So in addition to those questions I just raised, Sharon was kind enough to send this off to the fire chief, and he wrote back, and if you have had a chance to read, he sent back the fire prevention regulations that include dumpster regulations.
Yes, and what I want to just insert is I spoke to him today, because I reviewed them and talked to him, and we both decided that they really shouldn't be commingled, because he has one set of regulations that are under the fire code, we have another set of regulations. We both agreed they should be, but what he did ask, which I think is proper, is under 3.6 to add in the piece about the holes.
Under our regulation 3.6?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, the dumpster shall not be rodent-proof?
No, the part about the holes needing to be,
1/4 inch diameter?
I've got it, hold on.
Built into the dumpster.
Yes, a section about, yes, I added it in, I just added it in, but I haven't sent it out yet, that thank you, Susan, that any holes built into the dumpster for the purpose of applying firefighting water shall be capped but not permanently secured as to render them inoperable. Which is,
And I correct me if I'm
understand.
wrong, but I believe
Thank you.
things like self-enclosed dumpsters that have hydraulic closures and stuff like that, that are sealed, have those type of fire equipment, fire type attachments allowed to them. I don't think a standard commercial dumpster behind the Chinese eatery or behind a pizza shop would have those, because the thing opens from the top.
Okay.
So I think for the sealed units, I think we should add that. I have no problem with it, but I don't think we should require the guy who has, Bob being me, Bob's Pizza and Sub, who has a 6-yard dumpster that flips open, to have to require a 2-inch line in the side of the thing, because that'd be an extraordinary cost to have somebody come in and weld that fixture on that dumpster.
And the only other thing he wanted just to add is the part about being able to get an emergency waiver, which is sort of what we, in some ways, have as the, I can add a box and a definition onto our application, but that was just for people that like following a fire or a flood, that they can get immediate relief to get a dumpster. But other than that, he and I both agreed it would be probably better off to keep both codes separate.
So Sharon, right now, the fire department requires a permit for a dumpster. So
Correct.
if we decide that we're gonna require a permit, then they will no longer issue?
No, they're gonna issue a permit, but they might waive the fee if we charge a fee.
Oh, it
That's
says
what we were
that
talking about.
it's-
No, yeah, but that's
Oh,
one thing, and
okay.
then he and I ended up talking today. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
So they would issue the permits, or we would issue the
No, they
permits?
would issue a permit also based on their regulations.
So they would have to get 2 dumpster permits, one from the Board of Health and one from the fire department?
Depending on the situation, yes.
Depend,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
what they want.
What I see a lot, more than anything, I would say, is the fact that a lot of the dumpsters that are around, the lids aren't being kept closed when not in use, and the doors aren't being kept closed when not in use. And that's one
Can I
of the-
bring that up for discussion? I
Yeah.
can only speak for where I live and our dumpsters. And I've noticed this for the last 2 weeks, that I've gone out there on a sporadic basis, just inspecting for disposal things in the wrong dumpster, amongst other things. And the covers are back. And the one that's on the trash dumpster, these dumpsters are a different shape than what we had the last time. Closing them is very difficult.
Mhm.
I'm fairly tall, and I can just barely get enough to push it and shut it. The one on the recycled dumpster, which is actually shorter than the other one, is heavier. I couldn't close that thing for love of money, and the other day, everything was wide open when I went down there.
Do you know if when they're emptying them, I know you're not
I'm not
home, but do you
there
know
at
if
the
they're,
time,
if
yeah.
they're closing them once they're emptied?
Is the
trash
person
hauler?
closing it supposed to physically go over there?
Well, it should
Excuse
be,
me,
once
emptying, it's
it's
supposed to physically
emptied,
go
it
over there and
should be
close it?
closed when it's put back.
But who does that?
The hauler should make sure that container
Yeah,
the lid's down and the doors are closed
okay.
once it's emptied. And it should be kept,
Yeah, I can only
closed when
speak
it's
for where I
not
am
used.
at Lincoln
I
Village
would think
condominiums, and that is not
that-
happening.
That's gonna be a
The
hard,
side doors.
I'm
it's gonna be
talking
a hard
about
thing
the thing on the top.
to enforce. It's gonna be very difficult to enforce, and I think that has to be started with the people who hire the company to come empty their dumpsters. I mean, it has to be in that requirement, that level for that to be enforced. I really don't think the Board of Health is gonna be able to go around to every dumpster in the town
Yeah.
and make sure your covers are closed. And I don't know if I wanna get to that, and I'm speaking for myself. I don't think I want our Board of Health to get involved in that detail level of a process.
Yeah.
I think we should encourage everyone who hires a dumpster company to include in their language that they insist that the company close their covers when they empty their dumpsters. However, I have also noticed that lots of dumpsters are wide open across the town, and you're just asking for problems. And so I can only urge the businesses in this town to try to close their covers as frequently as possible, and to keep those side doors closed and locked for 2 reasons. One is to hold down any plausible having dumping being done in your dumpster, and 2, just to keep the weather out, to keep the weight down for everyone. So it's just logical sense. And 3, it's an open invitation to anybody, flying animal, rodent, whatever you want to call it, birds, anything, to go into the dumpsters and scavenge food and cause problems. So I can only urge the people in the town who hire dumpster contractors that they mandate that their contractor close their covers when they empty their dumpsters. Urge them to do so, and then I'm leaving it at that as far as I'm concerned. That makes sense to the board.
And my mother lives in one of the condos, and she's in a walker in a wheelchair. So when she throws her rubbish in, she can't pull that dumpster cover back.
Yeah.
And she can't open the side one. So, it's, if I can't get to it, it's typically a home health aide that does it. And, do you go out there and make sure that she closed it? It is a problem.
Well, and the only other thing I could urge is that for people, citizens who live in condominiums that have dumpster hatches, is to get a 1/4-inch piece of nylon rope, probably about 15 feet long, and tie it to the handle. That would hang onto the side, so that if you wanted to pull it back, you could use the rope as a leverage point to pull the cover back down at your residences, to allow you to have access to get those lids closed. It's just a recommendation. It's sort of like when we had barrels and people complained about losing their covers. If you just take a piece of 1/4-inch nylon rope and make a hole in your lid and tie it to the handle, the cover can't go any farther than the handle. So that way the covers didn't blow off the barrels anymore because they were tied to the barrel. It was just a suggestion, but it was a quick way to keep the barrels and the covers together. Same thing with dumpsters. The easiest way I can think of is while the dumpster is closed, if you tie a 15-foot piece of nylon 1/4-inch rope to it with a double knot and let it open up, and if you had to close, at least reach the rope and use the rope as leverage to pull the cover down. Just a suggestion. So let's quickly get over the thing from our fire chief. One was to include under section 3.6 the language about the dumpster holes for the purpose of applying fire. Water shall be capped but not permanently secured. That we add that to section
I already
3.6.
have. Yeah, I just haven't sent it out yet.
So as far as I'm concerned, that's not, do we want to vote on that? Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think so.
As far as adding an emergency waiver to our dumpster regulations, I think I'm encouraging the board, and in fact, I make a suggestion that we add the waiver requirement to our dumpster regs for emergency purposes, that the fire chief has list, item number 1 of his list, which was to strongly include an emergency waiver for the immediate placement of a dumpster on any given property for the safe and reasonable location for the purpose of mitigating the effects following a fire, water leak, flood, basement, or any other emergency issue that will require immediately disposal of items, materials within the business or property of the general purpose, safety, health, and structural stability. Permit may be then obtained within a reasonable amount of time if necessary. I think that's an important clause to have in our regulation. Does everyone agree on that?
Yeah.
So where would that go?
Yeah.
Just so I know where it's gonna be.
So,
Do we need to make a motion
I thought you did that already.
to add that?
if you want to, what I was gonna do is like add another
Section 5, temporary.
checkbox on the application and then put the definition into our
Okay,
definitions.
section 5 is temporary dumpsters.
Yeah, and I can add that piece into it.
Yeah, add that piece into it also.
Yeah, but also put it as a
Yes.
definition.
I concur, we should
Yeah.
put it in both places. So we're
Yeah.
gonna add it to section 5 and add it to our
Yeah,
cover letter.
okay.
Item number 2 from Fire Chief Nuttall, which was the fire department currently requires a permit for a dumpster, which I feel can be rolled to the Board of Health. You just talked about that, they're gonna keep them separate.
Yes.
The main requirement of the fire department is need for a 15-foot minimum distance between dumpster and a structure. Is that in our
That's
dumpster reg?
that's what we have right
Yeah.
now in our
Okay.
regulations.
So we don't have to change that at all?
No.
So if that's true, have we met the requirements of the chief that we wanted to do
Yes.
the regulations?
That's why I called him today, because I just wanted to go over it again with him.
Okay. So as far as we're concerned, we're going to go along with the chief's recommendations and include those changes in our definition.
So we will keep the fire chief's dumpster permits separate, we'll keep them separate, we're not gonna commingle
It's gonna be
them, so.
separate, but as he said, he will probably waive his I mean, it's ridiculous to have 2 permit fees.
Okay.
So he would
Okay.
probably end up waiving his, and then we would have ours. But yes, we're gonna keep them separate, the regulations separate,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I don't want to be a pain in the butt here, but I really want to be a pain in the butt here. Does anyone see a problem with, I know you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but I'm
You
going
can
to say it
say whatever you
anyhow,
want.
with the fire chief having an application for a permit and the Board of Health having an application for a permit, do we think this is gonna be seen by the citizens as overkill?
Well, that's why I asked, you have to get a permit from both.
I actually think that his information, I was reading this, was like his concerns are more like flammable issues, and that's why he wants the
Combustible.
information to go through his office.
Right.
So that he can say, oh, wait a minute, you're putting a rechargeable battery in there? I'm using it like a silly kind of thing, but I think that's the only reason why.
Yeah, I think she's right. His is more to do with content of what's in the dumpster, and ours is more of the physical, and then the placement and all the other stuff.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
would not feel right if I didn't raise it. So.
Yeah.
Did we know that they had a special, that they had their own permit? That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, like,
I didn't know that until I talked to him today.
So how would somebody know that they had to go to him to get one in the first place?
to get a dumpster.
Yeah, I think that dumpster people would say, yeah, you should talk to.
I can ask him. I mean, that's all I can ask him.
Don't know. That's a
wouldn't
good question,
think
but I
anybody
think,
would know.
I'd be willing to bet that if you were going to pull a dumpster for your commercial business or
Okay.
for a construction site, they would say, did you get the permit from the fire department yet? And
Okay.
they would probably go get the permit from the fire
I
department.
think
Most of these dealers who deal in these containers
Okay.
know the town regulations, and so would probably normally
I think
suggest
it's on the
that.
building permits.
As far
too.
as I'm
Yeah.
concerned,
Yeah.
that may be true too, maybe on the building
Yeah,
permit,
I
but
think it's a
as
requirement.
of receiving my mail this weekend, I wasn't aware that I had to go to the fire department to get a dumpster permit either, so.
Yeah.
And again, I believe it's more fire-related than anything else, so I understand what that's all about, so. Ours is really to deal with a lot more than just fire,
Right.
so.
Much.
And I think it's
My
important,
grandfather
I just think it's
was
important that you have an understanding as a board as to why we're doing it, and so that we can all stand together when we have to, or if we're challenged by the citizens why we're doing this, why we think this is important, and why we think, and even though it's, some people may see it overkill, well, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. The fire department one really has to do with the fire department. This has to do with the Board of Health and all the issues that have been raised in the Board of Health. And that's why we're doing this. So I think it's critical that we do have our dumpster regs in place so that we can, as fact is they follow similar tones and have similar requirements on this, is fine. It's less duplication of effort. But I think the reason why we're doing this is sound and justified. And I think it's an important thing for the Board of Health to do for the future of this town. So that being said, did anyone else have any other questions for the regulation after the last time we went over it? So if not, I'm simply going to ask the questions that I raised earlier. When putting a dumpster reg into place, we know what we were facing originally with food establishments needing to keep dumpsters off dirt, keep dumpsters clean, keep dumpsters area clean, keep dumpsters from having holes in it, and having open opportunities to allow for any type of animal entrance to their dumpsters. So the first process is to get the dumpster off the earth and get it onto a permeable piece of concrete, tar, or crushed stone that's a pad that is impervious to water or sheds water, so the dumpster itself is not sitting in water, ever. The second thing was to make sure that the holes in the dumpster are small enough to drain any liquid that needs to be drained, but does not allow any infestation by any animal into the dumpster itself. The third thing we were talking about is enclosing these dumpsters, and whether or not we want to enclose these dumpsters for all institutions in the town, or whether or not we want to just include the food establishment in this town for enclosures, and whether or not people had a difference with that. The next question I had for you is residential. How do we want to handle residential dumpsters? Some residential dumpsters are 6-8 yard dumpsters that get picked up just like a truck in commercial property. Some of them are 3 and 4 yard dumpsters, which is little square rectangle boxes, and maybe just have enough room to fit in the property without being enclosed. It may cause a whole bunch of headaches if we ask them to enclose that. So I think we need to be upfront with our regulation and defining where we are enforcing what. And I just think it's important that you all have some input on where and what we're enforcing. So that we're not just blatantly saying all dumpsters in the town must be on concrete, asphalt, or crushed stone pad. All dumpsters in the town must be enclosed in fencing within 6 months. And it doesn't matter whether you're commercial or residential, it's all encompassing or not. I don't think our dumpster regulation can do that. So But that's my opinion. You all have your own opinions. So I am saying to you that I would like to say our regulation for food establishments is, by the time we put our regulation into effect, we are requiring that they have removed their dumpster from the ground, placed it either on cement, tar, or crushed stone that moves water away, and that it will be enclosed in an enclosed environment so that people will not have access to it. And the only time people have access to it is when people are throwing their trash away, and that they keep the covers closed when they're enclosed in the gate, so that they're not readily available to any rodent at all or any flying animal at all. That would be, and I'm pretty much really comfortable with saying enclosure and leave it at that without having to go further. But as long as the fence is up and the dumpster's on a solid piece of ground and not sitting in a puddle of water, and the hole in the dumpster meets our requirements, I'm pretty comfortable with that. I've been to the back of most of the bigger commercial operations. They all could have self-contained dumpsters. You're not gonna have a problem with those too much, except for when the company comes to unhook them from the building and hook the new one. They tend to have some cardboard fall off. I watched this on several occasions. Every occasion I've watched so far, the truck driver has picked the stuff up and packed it in and then tied the cape over the square box where the compactor goes in, and then picks the box up and moves on. So that's another thing you have to be aware of, is that certain commercial dumpsters in this town are these self-contained, enclosed, no access by the public at all, attached to the building, have to be unreleased from the building, moved away, lifted up, and closed off and taken away and replaced again. Those type of things, I believe, have to have the fire retardant system in, because if there's a fire going on inside them, the firemen have to be able to attach a hose and turn the water on so they can put the fire out. I'm fully comfortable with that. So I think we need to make sure we're encompassing in our rules what we're talking about. I don't think we can just say any dumpster. I think we should make sure that's clear, that if you're operating in a self-enclosed dumpster environment, you follow the rules of that, and we don't have to worry about those being in cages, because that would be a tremendous burden to the commercial business. But I think for the purpose of what this regulation was established for, any size dumpster at a commercial food operation needs to be on permanent cement, stone, or tar. It needs to be enclosed and gated so that nobody has free access to it. And I think that is one piece of this regulation that I think is important to be clear. The second one is for other commercial operations, and I'm raising the question now. Does anybody else who have a stationary store or anything else have to follow that same rule, except for having it off the ground, having it on cement, tar, or crushed stone? Do we need to encompass them and tell them that they have to have theirs gated? Does the board want to do that?
What would the common denominator be here? That is it food disposal where the
I'm drawing a line with food disposal and everything else. I don't know if that should be drawing.
The card business, the local, you said mom and pop card store. Should they have to comply with the letter of the law if we put it in black and white?
Right.
What if they don't have food that they prepare and process and get rid of, and that's what attracts the rodents?
That's my assumption.
So is that what this is where you're trying to sort of divide?
I'm trying to say, in my mind, it's not a fine line. There's a really good definition line that food service is a separate item unto itself, which needs to have an enclosed dumpster. All other commercial dumpsters need to be off the ground, which means they cannot be sitting on soil. They need to be on tar, cement, or crushed stone. And after that, I don't think they need to be in enclosures, because as long as the people are maintaining them and keeping them closed and not having stuff, debris all over the place, at least they're not sitting there rotting away. Almost any dumpster I know has food dropped into it. I work in a building and people walk by and throw apples in it.
Okay.
Well, what do you think an apple's gonna do? It's gonna attract something, right?
Well, and that's kind of like, people could walk by the card store too, and if it's not fenced in, they could throw their food in their dumpster too.
I'm just trying to bring to your attention my feeling, and your feeling, what you just said, is absolutely true.
Yeah.
I just don't know how many people are gonna walk into someone's property and throw their trash in it. Is it possible? Yes, it is. Does it happen? Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
And if you go down the Cape today, in any city or town in the Cape, and try to find a dumpster that's not locked up solid, or trying to find a trash barrel in any one of those towns to throw your rental trash away. It's almost impossible now in the Cape to do that without paying to get rid of your trash.
Yeah.
You go up Main now, you go down to the corner liquor store, country store, and you pay $5 and you toss your trash. You rent a cabin, you bring your trash down, you give them $5, you put it in their dumpster. That's how you get rid of the trash.
Yeah.
You know, or you throw it on the side of the road, and our roads become grimy again. So if we make it too tight, if we lock down every dentist, every establishment outside of food services and make them follow the same rules, I think it's in my mind it's overkill. I think as long as they have a dumpster and it's not sitting on the ground, I think we've done our job for that process. However, I see your point. Anybody at any time could throw a bag of rotten food in anyone's, and as we all know, people have done that in the past.
Yeah.
Lobsters, whatever you want to call it, wasted food can turn up anywhere.
Now, what
No.
about the school dumpsters? Are they all up on slabs? Because they get a
They're
lot
all-
of
they're all
food.
on top.
They're all
They're
up on everything.
They're on asphalt.
Yeah, they're all on
But they're
But not fenced in.
No.
And they get a lot of food put in them. So why aren't they fenced in?
We haven't passed a regulation yet.
Oh, okay. But would they be considered a food establishment? I mean, they do serve a lot of food in there.
That's something the board has to take into consideration. Is the schools part of the food service establishment? Is Tedeschi's
Yeah,
part
they
of the food
have
service
cafeteria.
Well, I
establishment?
think the schools in our town, you probably know, but I don't think every school has a kitchen. A lot of, like, they do a lot of it at this school and then.
Well, they all have
But they
kitchens
have to
and they're all
throw it away.
licensed. The main
Right.
majority of the food prep is done at the high school, but they all serve food.
Yeah, so I guess they would all have leftover
Yeah, they all have to
cafeteria
get rid of
plates
their
and stuff
garbage.
But they
too.
also bring lunches, and you have
Yeah.
food left over there,
Right,
too, that gets
yeah.
thrown away, so.
Yeah, and
that's-
teachers and such, and even then, yeah, I guess.
So do you want to waive, do you want to waive the town and not waive the business of the town? No, you don't. You want to include everybody. So would the town consider this a burden by enforcing that all the schools have to have enclosed dumpsters that are gated, so that because they have food service in them, we're following the same rules? You need to take that consideration in your vote when you vote for the dumpster reg. It's a very good point. It's a very acceptable point. And yes, there's going to be a lot of food waste in our school dumpsters. So
Yeah, there is already because of the
Yeah.
amount that's thrown out.
So you're now talking about the town's going to have to pay to have fences constructed around all the school. I'm just saying, put it out. That's the way it is. That's our
Right, it does
regulation.
seem like it'd be a huge burden. And then I was thinking one step further is, so you have a little, so you got a hairdresser and the card store and the pizza guy.
And you're saying
And
they
they're
all
all,
share
and
the same
they're all
dumpster.
sharing the same dumpster, which I think happens ideally in business, so they'd be all complimenting each other. I
If you
think
have
the
food,
firemen,
where we
yeah.
have food, you're going to get fenced in.
Yeah, well, and the firemen might have some issues with the chemicals of the salon and,
I share a dumpster with I'm in a hair salon and we share a dumpster with a pizza place and a church
Do ya?
and a bookstore and a cupcake place.
Wow,
So we put a lot of
yeah.
Food waste.
different things in there, chemicals and food, and it's not fenced in and it's not up on slabs, but it's not in
Wow.
Abington, so I don't. But
So I thought I need to bring this stuff up to your attention because I want this regulation to stand on its ground and be explained by any member of the board so that when we do have the public come in, we can defend our rationale for what our purpose is. And I think it's important to raise these questions now so that you're thinking about it. So when we do take the vote to put our regulation in, you understand why you voted the way you voted and why we insisted upon the regulation being the way it was set up to be. So tonight, I'm asking you to think about those type of things. And tonight, I'm asking, if this regulation is standing as it is right now, and we just made amendments to it for that, I would like to propose, and I'm gonna propose it, that we establish that this regulation would have a line which would say that for commercial food establishments, or any establishment that sells, serves, or distributes food, they are required not only to have the dumpster off the ground, off the soil, on cement, tar, or crushed stone that lets water weep away, that those establishments are required to have their dumpster enclosed in a fencing environment and have those gates closed. And that would include our schools. And again, before this regulation gets voted on, we're gonna run this by the town manager to make sure, you know, because this regulation will affect the town budget line item. Because they're gonna have to raise and appropriate to pay for those fences.
Well, the other part is if you, I just was trying to visualize, if you can picture the back of the Frollo School, it's one of the smallest areas there is, even to just get it in and out. So there's,
Oh, yeah.
Technically speaking, though, there's a gate when you pull into the Frollo School. The
Yeah.
one side has no egress, and there's one side that has a gate. If that gate was closed, that technically could be a fenced-out area.
The
So
other-
if we could say that rather than requiring the dumpster to be closed, that there was no access to the general public to the dumpster because that gate was there and it was closed on the weekends and nights, so that the gate would be closed by the.
So that would
That would
qualify as
cover-
like a waiver or something like
Yes,
that?
right.
You could come
the
before
other part
board
is
for a
just the
waiver.
whole thing of the whole new school building committee, what's gonna happen with the school, if this gets passed.
They're gonna have to follow these regulations.
No, but I meant there might be schools that are gonna be empty, two buildings that are gonna be empty.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
very true.
yeah.
And that will become
Yeah.
town buildings that will have to be, you know, dealt
Whatever they
with.
do with
Hopefully
it, yeah.
repurposed,
Right.
Yeah,
because
So-
empty buildings are no good either.
right, yeah,
For all kinds of reasons.
yeah.
That's the one thing, and the other part is the residential versus commercial operation of dumpsters. And
I think if we could make some sort of decisions at some point, that even if we could get, Mary usually sends out the applications for the renewals around October, that people at least would be aware of it, yeah,
Mhm.
at that point,
so,
yeah.
and the other piece that I'm talking about is the residential piece. Units of 4 or more units in the town that have a dumpster in their property. I want that dumpster either on wheels or off the earth,
4 or more,
4 or more. If it's 3 or less, they have our barrels.
right,
So if it's 4 or more, that dumpster needs to either be on wheels or the dumpster location needs to be on a pad. That being cement, gravel, or tar. And meets the requirements of the dumpster requirement.
so
As
it
far
would
as
probably
locations
be a good
concerned.
idea if we all relooked at these regulations and see where we need to tweak,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
That's what we need to do,
Okay,
okay?
Now residential, there's like, I know someone that owns a big house on 58 and it just looks like a single house. She does use a dumpster. I don't know if it's up on anything, but like each little apartment, it's like 1-bedroom apartments but it is a house. It's not like a big apartment building or a,
is it a single family or multifamily?
It's 7 units. It's got seven one-bedroom
Oh, I
apartments.
didn't hear what you
yeah,
said.
it's got several, 1-bedroom or like studio apartments.
Okay,
And so that would be considered a 4 or more
That's a
unit.
commercial,
Yeah.
that's a commercial operation.
Oh, that would be considered commercial?
Well, that's residential commercial, not as opposed to residential private.
So if it's more than
Residential
4,
private is 3 units or
then
less.
it's residential commercial, if it's
Yeah.
more than 4?
Yeah, that's why they're required to have a dumpster. That's why they don't have,
Because I just wrote residential versus, so
Okay.
residential commercial is 4
It's
or
4 or more
more.
units.
Okay.
Where are you getting that information from? It's not in this.
Right here.
I was thinking
It's in-
residential
it's in our
was,
trash regulations.
I was thinking commercial is a business and then residential
no,
is.
don't go there, because
Okay, it's-
in trash, we made a decision in our regulation that if you had 3 units or less,
Yes.
you'd be considered a residential
Right.
process.
Okay.
If you have 4 or more, you would be considered a commercial operation and required to be a dumpster, just like commercial business required to be a dumpster.
Right, so if your brain
I
wasn't
remember
sitting
that.
next to me and I wanted to find this information,
You go
where
to
would I
the
find it?
trash, you go to
It's
the
on the
trash.
it's on the
reg-
health department
Health
website.
development website and the trash regulations. Just go to our trash regulations. It will clearly explain what the difference is between domestic trash
And the
and
Board of
commercial
Health.
trash from the Board of Health.
Okay, so if it's under 4, it's domestic, if it's over 4, it's commercial. Okay. I remember all that.
So there's 5
but I
apartments,
just was-
it's gotta have a dumpster, and that dumpster needs to be
Okay.
either on wheels or off the ground. Most of them are on wheels. Most of
Yeah.
them are on 6-inch wheels, and they're on the earth. But as long as they're off the ground,
Recently, there's
I'm happy.
been a ton of, I've seen a ton of dumpsters in people's driveways, like over the last 2 weeks.
Well,
It's
there's been a lot of
spring
water,
cleaning.
well, that, and there's been a lot of
Spring
water
clean- yeah.
damage from the winter
Oh, I
and the
know.
rains. A lot of people have had
My
water
basement gets
problems,
it.
you know, a lot of trees have come down,
Yep.
damaging houses and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of.
But they're all on
dumpsters.
wheels, which That's great.
Well, most commercial yard dumpsters are on
Yeah.
rear wheels with a front pad, so. But generally 6 units, 6 cubic yards or less are generally on wheels. And the bigger ones are just have 2 metal wheels in the back and straight in the front.
So do we need to, under the section with waivers, which would assume that people wanting to come in and question where they fit in terms of this, under the waiver section, do we need to tighten up the language in the waiver section? If
So
we're gonna
section
have
8.0,
people come in and,
I guess we should put a page number on each of our pages of our regulation at some point in time too. But 8.1, the board may give and grant a waiver and condition of the dumpster permit into an existing dumpster permit currently. Waiver shall be granted only when the opinion of the board is the person requesting a waiver has established the enforcement of a regulation from a waiver sought that would manifest unjust and considered irrelevant facts and circumstances, or a person requesting a waiver has establishment that the level of environmental protection, public health hazard, and nuisance control is at least equivalent to that provided within the dumpster reg itself. There's also new construction projects, as be determined by the board, will not be granted a waiver for dumpster regulations, because if you're building a new facility, you have to have a dumpster. So how would you like to tighten that up at all, if at all? Take your time.
I've had multiple copies with all the discussion.
So don't I.
I'm gonna start papering the house with them.
Nope, you want to start burning this to keep the house warm.
Shred them.
You can burn those too. I just want to remind the board that waivers are going to be granted on a very limited basis, as a need basis. We learned our lesson very early in my career in the Board of Health that waivers can only cause you headaches down the road. So waivers have to be extraordinary
You're talking about mixed
purposes.
use, aren't you?
I'm not talking about anything. I'm just simply saying that we learned our lesson that granting waivers really needs to be in an emergency basis only. It's really not going to be something we're going to consider for one versus another, because the waivers are set and meaning the way they should be set and meant, and a waiver should only be granted if it's truly a hardship or truly a significant impact to either the consumer or the Board of Health.
So based on that, isn't it hard to define unless you know the circumstances? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, the concept of something as a hardship is open for quite a bit of discussion on any board.
Truly, financial hardship is financial hardship, and I know people will approach financial hardship, but the idea being is that if the board's going to hold our regulation in fact in place, that we have to hold to our point of view that waivers will be granted when the board agrees, although when the board members, or at least 3 of the board members agree, there's an egregious issue that needs to be overwhelmingly voted against our typical regulation. And that egregiousness has to be significant enough that would cause significant undue hardship on the individual requesting that waiver. And other than that, we're really not going to grant waivers.
Yeah.
Waivers have to be, we've already granted a waiver where we're going to institute an emergency purpose of installing dumpster in emergency purpose. Your house got on fire and you have to get rid of it. Your house got hit by a tree and half the side of your house is sitting in your driveway. Yeah, I'm not going to make you run down to the Board of Health and get a permit. Go get a permit and start emptying your thing out. Eventually, you should come down and apply for the permit, but that's what that emergency waiver is all about. The idea of coming in front of the board saying, I own a 4-family unit and I can't afford to get a dumpster off the ground, that's not true. You tell your dumpster company you need a dumpster on wheels, or you need to put it on a pad. And if you can't put it on a pad, then you need 2 dumpsters on wheels that are smaller, that make up the size that you normally have with a dumpster that wouldn't be on wheels. There's always options available to the client, and you have to. I'm not trying to be overburdening. I'm simply saying that the dumpster companies really can fit almost any need of any client that they need, whether it requires wheels or whether it requires a pad. the idea of a pad, and that's why I raised the question of crushed stone. As long as it's sitting 6 inches above the ground in a box frame crushed stone and the water permeates away, I'm fine with that dumpster sitting on crushed stone, because it does not allow the dumpster to sit in water. That's the least expensive way I know to do this. Instead of having tar or cement poured, you build a box frame with a 2x6 piece of, and you fill it with crushed stone, and you put your dumpster on that crushed stone. As long as that dumpster sits on that crushed stone and doesn't fall into the yard, you're okay. You know, for the most part though, the ones I've seen in the 4 and 5 unit complexes of residential use, they're almost always on wheels, almost always, because they get rolled in and rolled away from the building, so that the dumpster can empty them. You know, and those that are bigger than 6 yards have to be an environment that the truck can pull in and lift them up. So they really can't be too close to anything. And almost, again, I'm yeah, there are going to be certain people in this town that are going to be affected by this 100%. Almost everybody, a greater majority that I've seen so far, and I'm not saying I've seen the entire town, but the greater majority of what I've seen driving around the town are on tar, are on cement, aren't in the earth, and don't have a problem. Yes, I believe some people who have food establishments will be affected by the requirement to enclose it. Yes, it is, but it's for the benefit of the town to do this, so I think it's a good reason to do it. I think as long as the rest of them keep it either on tar, cement, or crushed stone, I think we're fine with that. And I think for residential purposes, either on wheels or on a pad is more than adequate for what we're trying to establish here to keep things neat. Because 4 units or more, I don't know a single residential unit that's 4 units or more doesn't put trash in the dumpster. When I say trash, consumable food items in the dumpster.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
And I don't want to interrupt your train, but
My train can slow down anytime it has to. Deciding and disassemble and move away.
I just want to make sure that I'm getting this right. This waiver, is this $25?
Yes, the permit fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody comes in and says, I've had a hardship, I want to save $25. Is that what this? Is that what you say? Is that what this is all about?
No, I'm saying I am Bob's sub shop.
Yeah.
I'm barely getting by. I have a 6-yard dumpster sitting on the earth next to my sub shop.
Okay.
Okay? This regulation saying, A, you have to be 15 feet away from a structure. B, you have to be either on cement, stone, or tar. And C, you need to enclose it in a gated fence.
Okay. What's
And
the waiver, though?
that individual would come to us and say that that's an egregious cost to me, I can't afford it.
$25?
Would you grant me a waiver?
No.
No, the cost of doing this.
Oh, all right.
The waiver,
Putting the slab of cement and
That's
fencing
what I'm
it.
saying. Why?
No, the
So why is somebody gonna sit in here for
the fee is the fee.
The
Sue.
fee is the
The fee is the fee.
$25.
They got
Okay.
nothing.
So they're saying
They're
the
coming here for
waiver
other
is so
things.
that they don't have to comply.
That'd be one reason they would come in for a
Okay.
waiver.
It's not the waiver of the $25 fee.
No.
Okay.
Second question.
The second question is now, those I don't even know what they're called without using a brand name. Are these considered dumpsters? These things they put like a bag
Yes.
down. Those are also
Those
considered
are those
dumpsters because those.
She's talking about the
The
ones that
portable.
people have on their lawns, that those aren't considered a dumpster. You know the ones that you.
The trash,
Yeah,
Home
they're trash
Depot
bags.
and Lowe's
Yeah,
have
we're
these
not
4x8 bags, canvas
Yeah,
bags. you
we're
can
not
put-
talking about
We're not
that.
talking about
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
No,
so
they're
that's
not
not included. Yeah, because I was like, oh, how's that going to go?
No.
We're
So I'm
talking-
sorry. Please bear with me.
No.
I knew it was totally
You're
derailing
fine.
where your thought was. That's why I didn't want to interrupt because I knew it was going in a whole
Those
other
are single
direction.
use, one time only.
Right.
Most of the time, they're there for 5 days and gone. It's like.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. But I mean, I was just curious.
Yeah.
But, you know, anyone who has one of those in the neighborhood, he's stacking 15 or 20 of those in his yard, a complaint can be made to the Board of Health, and we
Yeah.
can deal with that pretty easily.
Yeah.
As outside the registry of a dumpster reg is just being a trash nuisance. So those pretty much come with a deal that you have 7 days to fill them up, and we're coming on the 8th day to empty.
Yes. No. Well, and I've seen them set places a little bit longer than that, but that's neither here nor there.
That's right, because
yeah, I
that
just
does
didn't
not
understand.
usually contain too much edible trash. That's generally for building waste.
Yes.
So that's my opinion of that anyhow, so.
Although you'd be surprised what rodents consider to be tasty morsels.
We learned the hard way. Yeah, we learned the hard
Like
way.
We learned a
inside of
lot last
furniture.
year.
Yeah, I
They
think
love the
yeah.
inside of
Yeah.
furniture,
I
pillows,
think they
any
like
type
some
of
plaster
stuffing.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bedding.
Yeah,
It's considered bedding, so.
Yeah.
we always have.
Well, they like
our
that for their
engines.
nests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the dumpster regulations? So what I'm gonna encourage you people all to do now is to take all this information, read the dumpster regulation one more time, incorporate anything that I've mentioned that you agree or disagree with,
Well,
and that,
yours, but you can
in 2 weeks, when we meet again, I'd like to take an initial vote to agree to our dumpster reg and send it on to the town for approval so that we can post it and do what we have to do. That would be my thought process for tonight. Anybody else have anything to say? You're welcome to say anything you want.
Thank you. I got a lot cleared up for me already. This was my first time seeing this. So, and I think I misunderstood what the waiver term was.
That's fine,
Thanks, I appreciate
not a
that.
problem. Does anyone have anything else for the board? Because that covers everything that we wanted to cover tonight. I've covered the minutes, I've covered reorganization, dumpster regulations, the health agent's report. Again, next Monday night at 6:30 in the selectmen's room, we're gonna have a joint meeting with the selectmen.
How long is that gonna last for us? We'd like to stay back.
I'm guessing 20 minutes to half an
6:30?
hour at 6:30. They meet at 6:30, I believe.
Yeah, I
Sharon?
believe so.
If either you or Mary could call the selectmen's office to see if we could be put first on the agenda so that we could
I'd be glad to.
make sure,
Yeah.
so that we could, I was thinking a half hour. I don't think it's, I don't know what, I really don't know the full agenda of the meeting.
This is the cap in the landfill?
Yes.
Okay.
I won't be
Dawn and I
there
went down
next
there.
week, but
You slept around.
I just want to bring two things up. I have a really good intern right now. As you know, I try to be resourceful and get as many as I can. And the project he and I are working on is redesigning the body establishment application. The present one we have right now is all one, and all you have is one checkbox for establishment, and the rest of it's body practitioner, so it's not very well defined. So we're going through the regulations and actually designed two separate ones. The other part he and I are looking into is noise regulations. A few years ago, we adopted DEPs, which are pretty vague, because ours were kind of outdated. They were, I think,
That's a good
adopted
word
in
for it.
2001 or 2003.
Right.
And I actually talked to DEP today, because I was with them on a site visit, and they were thrilled that we were looking into noise regs, because they said they are, but we would probably get ours done faster than the states would. So that's one of the goals that he and I are trying to accomplish also.
Okay.
I just wanted to bring that.
Anything else to be said? Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion adjourned, second. Is there anything further to say?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's closed. One moment, please.